All right. So we have some breaking news. I was doing a little reading earlier today, just trying to catch up and see what was going on with the government shutdown and if it's going to continue or if the vote has been cast to open everything. And I came across another article, and that article was a bit concerning. And it's talking about SNAP benefits. And the article came out today. As a matter of fact, it came out at 12:12 Eastern Standard Time today. And what it's saying, essentially, and I'm going to read it, is that SNAP benefits are still being withheld. And I'm trying to figure out, first off, there was no real reason that SNAP was withheld in the first place, right? Um, Funds have been appropriated, contingency funds have been appropriated previously in the event of a government shutdown uh, to actually distribute to states. Well, the current administration ended up sending out information um, saying that the government can't send out SNAP benefits. And then a judge ruled that yes, you will actually send those benefits out. And then they asked, well, can we do partial benefits? So they began to send stuff out, and states began to pay people their benefits for the month. Well, they pushed back on that again, and Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown, she ended up putting a stay in place over the benefits, the SNAP benefits to go out until more things were heard about it. And now we find ourselves in a situation where the government may be opened here soon. However, SNAP is still being pushed back on uh, by this administration. And so, again, going through my daily goings on and reading a bunch of stuff and trying to stay as informed as possible, I came across an article, and I'll be able to share it with other viewers. I'm not able to do it here on TikTok, unfortunately. But that article uh, has been published by NPR, NPR, and it's talking about what this actual administration is continuously doing in light of everything else that's happening. So I'm going to read this article in its entirety so that people can understand what is happening. So the title of the actual article is Trump administration again seeks or asks Supreme Court intervene on order for full SNAP benefits. All right. The Trump administration has notified the U.S. Supreme Court that it still wants to fight a lower court ruling requiring full SNAP benefits to be paid for November. The move comes after an appeals court late Sunday refused another government attempt to deny full funding for the nation's largest anti-hunger program. The administration's appeal to the High Court over the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program comes despite new efforts to end the federal shutdown, which would render the issue moot. At issue is an order from a federal judge in Rhode Island to increase SNAP payments from the 65% the government says it can afford to 100% of what SNAP recipients are entitled to. In its ruling, the appeals court said the harm from denying millions of people food aid would be immense, and it repeated the lower court finding that the funding gap could have been avoided. A1, the record here shows that the government sat on its hands for nearly a month, unprepared to make partial payments while people who rely on SNAP received no benefits a week into November and counting, the appeal court said. The federal judge in Rhode Island, John J. McConnell Jr., had accused the government of delaying payment for political purposes. The chaos of moves and counter moves has left states scrambling and heads spinning, and many SNAP enrollees remain uncertain how much of their benefit to expect for November and when it will come. On Friday, after the administration said it would send full payments, even as it appealed the order to do so, a number of states immediately started sending out that money. Around the country, some participants started getting it on the debit-like cards they used to buy groceries. Then the Supreme Court late Friday granted a request to temporarily pause those full payments while the appeals court considered the issue more fully. Adding to the confusion, Trump administration officials on Saturday directed states to immediately undo any actions they have made to fully fund SNAP and only pay 65%. In a statement, the U.S. Department of Agriculture said such payments were unauthorized and threatened states that they may end up having to cover those costs themselves and facing financial penalties. Rhode Island is one of the several states that had already sent full benefits to SNAP recipients before the Supreme Court temporarily halted full payments. In a statement Sunday, Democratic Governor Dan McKee railed against President Trump, saying he intentionally created chaos for states across the country, playing games with people's ability to feed their families, weaponizing hunger, and gaslighting the American people. It's inhumane. McKee said he was working on contingency options to protect Rhode Islanders against President Trump's volatility. At the same time, Rhode Island is among some 24 states who sought and obtained temporary protection from federal judge in Massachusetts. A hearing on that issue is set for Monday afternoon, which would be today. In court papers, the states said they feared that the federal government may attempt to recoup funds from the states that the state's residents have used to feed themselves and their families. That could amount to hundreds of millions of dollars, they said, and would risk catastrophic operational disruptions for the states, with a consequent cascade of harms for their residents. Trump administration officials did not respond to requests for comment. But over the weekend, Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins took to X to blame Democrats for the lapse in benefits and rallied against activist judges who have ordered reckless and unconstitutional legal maneuvers to force funding that Congress didn't appropriate. Speaking to Fox News, Rollins borrowed language from anti-Trump activists. She said, "It's interesting, the No Kings rally, where they said, 'We don't want a king in America,'" Rollins said, "except now they want a king who can create money out of the clear blue sky." Meanwhile, SNAP recipients remain in limbo, as do the organizations that serve them. The Facing Hunger Food Bank in Huntington, West Virginia, has tripled the volume of food distributions that are usual this time of year. According to the CEO, Cynthia Kirkhart, people are struggling, she says, and all the uncertainty has just exacerbated their pain. The news comes out that we are going to get SNAP benefits. Then we aren't going to get SNAP benefits. This is much worse. Folks get their hopes built up and then they crash. It's a lot, Kirkhart sighs. We can do better. And so that's the fullness of the article so far, as I see, which again simply highlights that the current administration is still seeking to essentially withhold full funding of SNAP benefits during this time. And for what reason, I'm not sure, as we are all somewhat confused as to what's going on with the government shutdown. Is it going to be reopened? I know that there is going to be a vote. There should have been a vote, or a vote is currently in process of happening. But the current administration is still seeking to withhold SNAP benefits, right? And as a reminder, the initial reason was because they couldn't send benefits out because of the shutdown, which again was misinformation. And now, although the government is expected to be opened back up, they are still continuing to hold those benefits. I wanted to get that out there. I don't want this to be lost in everything else that's happening, everything else that's going on, because Americans are still going to suffer because of a very cruel, intentionally cruel, I might add, administration that is not trying to actually assist the people, right? Wednesday night on the Pulse, we will be talking about the possibility of the government reopening, and we'll also talk about the 8 Democratic senators who have decided to side with the Republicans in reopening the government. But as for now, well, my friends, that is your breaking news. And so this is a short reading and a short live, but I absolutely appreciate all of your participation. And come catch us Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on The Pulse, where we will continue to put out the latest information and also give our opinions about everything that's going on. All right. So, with that being said, I will talk to you all at another time. Thank you all for listening. Have a good one.